sustainability and the appreciation of it. It's an important topic. I think brands are pushing the industry towards a certain direction, that definitely. But in the end, it's about the consumers. So looking at, again, two surveys here, in the case from a McKinsey packaging survey, also from August 2020, they asked the questions, okay, which factors that play an important role in customers' purchasing decision by category. Of course, if you ask a customer, is sustainability important for you, they will ask yes. If you give them the choice, rank these 7 factors according to the importance, in the end, price is the most important one, brand is some number 2, but the environmental impact is quite low. Of course, it always depends how we ask the questions. On the second side, McKinsey is US, but they reviewed it also across the world in different countries and different continents, and about the importance of products packaging in the different countries. And also here, of these 7 factors, environmental impact is the least important for consumers. So in the end, why is this like this? I mean, what is our industry doing? I mean, we know linoless is a topic, recycling is a topic, compostable, I don't know, there are a lot of different words around what we're hearing all the time, but what is going on with that? And so in the end, the question is, do consumers value sustainability, and what is the impact to our industry? What is our industry doing? What are you maybe doing specifically also to get there with the big picture, please? Andy.
Thank you, Martin. I have to say that in the 30-odd years that I've been writing about the label and the packaging industry, sustainability has always been around. But I think that the last 5 years have seen it really becoming a practical importance that we've all had to take note of. But perhaps, Clements, this is an interesting statistic, isn't it? There does seem to be a disconnect between the value that the consumer puts on sustainable packaging and the effort that we, as an industry, are putting into sustainability. Is the sustainability as important as we, as an industry, think it is?
Okay, I think I get an answer to it. Climate is changing, and sustainability can influence this. And I think mankind has no other chance than doing something in this direction. Even if we like it or not, in Germany you already have, or in Europe you have this Green Deal, and you have the regulations where you have to follow. I think associations or the industry itself has to teach or educate our whole industry. As you said, Bob, yesterday, are so many terms of compostable whatsoever. We have to learn. Brand owners say, we have a super package, we have a super product, it's compostable, now we save the world this way. And what is the reality? If you have a compostable package in Germany, it goes into the dual system. That means it goes into a yellow bag or yellow box. It goes to companies who sort everything out, and they say, we have no possibility of sorting out compostable packages from other packages. So where does it end? It goes to waste and will be burned. That means this is not a real ecological solution, but we have to find a solution how to use compostable packages and put them into industrial compostable units. Then it makes a real reason for that.
Thank you. Bob, there seems to be a major difference in approach between the US situation and the European situation. I think Clements was, so you might want to comment further on this, Clement, but as the associations, I know that the European Association as well has been engaging with the European Union in terms of legislation. We're very much driven here by the legislation. Is that the case in the US, though? Are you feeling pressure from the legislators yet?
I think Europe is much further ahead with the whole sustainability push than we are in the US. I'm hoping it evolves rather than is regulated into our business, because I think that if it's regulated in, it's going to be a problem. But it's confusing. I'll be very honest with you. We joked about it yesterday. Between recycled materials, recyclable, biodegradable, compostable, I'm confused. I'm dazed and confused. I'd like to educate myself and then educate our team on all of this, but we are going to lean heavily on our suppliers like Avery and Raflatec to educate us on materials that fall into this sustainable realm. But I'm hoping it evolves in a common sense way in the States. Personally, mentioned it yesterday. I'm concerned. I mean, I drive an electric car. I try to put everything in my recycling container, and then my wife takes it out and throws it away. They're not going to take that. Well, sure they are. We can't put that in the landfill. It's confusing. And I read another article. It said, when in doubt, throw it out. That can't be right. But I need to get educated. We need to get educated. I hope it evolves rather than is regulated into our industry.
I believe that you had a project about repulpable.
Oh, yes. Well, the last 2 years we haven't heard much. We haven't been asked much about recycled content or recyclable materials. But of late, surprisingly, the craft brewery folks, I think because they're catering to a much younger audience, they have come and said, hey, we've got to put something on the can that says this is a recyclable label. So that's one space where we're starting to hear it. And we've reached out to our friends at Avery and UPM to say, hey, help us out. What the heck do we use? And then in the grocery business, we have currently underway a project where our local fairly large grocery chain is going to be selling organic tomatoes grown on their organic farm in a brown craft, I guess, recyclable container. And they said, hey, we need a label on it that's absolutely repulpable. We'll get back to you, but we're working on it. So yes, we're being asked. It's coming. Again, I hope it just evolves, but clearly it's on the way.
Thank you. Honorary, Bob was saying there's a big role for the suppliers like yourselves and you've been Raflatec to educate the industry, and also we're kind of keen to learn. I wonder if we could start off, if you look at the three terms, recyclable, biodegradable, and compostable, could you give us a kind of rough understanding of, in the real world, how important those three aspects are?
So if we look at sustainable products, and it's interesting to start with the consumer side. Are consumers interested in sustainable solutions? The ethical answer is, of course, but no one really wants to give up any comfort or luxury in their packaging as a trade-off, right? So if we wait for them to tell us, I'm willing to pay more, I'm willing to sacrifice this to get a sustainable product, we're just not going to get there. So I think it's our job in the industry, the packaging industry, to kind of drive this and to be the white knight that protects a bit the comfort of our consumers without them really realizing it. And this has to start from somewhere. I think we, Avery Dennison or Raflatec, or Fredrigoni, has a big role in educating the industry and offering solutions that are more sustainable. It starts by explaining a bit what sustainability is. Because I've had brand owners come to me and say, hey, give us, what are your sustainable solutions? What's your sustainable solution? There's not one. Are you looking for a recycled content material, which uses recycled content but might not be recyclable? Are you looking for a monomaterial packaging that can be recycled? Are you looking for a label that enables recycling of a container, but the label itself will not be recycled? So there are different approaches to that. And then you add another layer of complexity with compostability, home compostability, industrial compostability. And a lot of this depends on many different actors in the industry. As Clement said, if a customer in Germany is very enthusiastic about compostability because they sell special homegrown vegetables and they're looking for that circularity, well, we might provide them with the right label, but the supply chain behind it, the stream and the life cycle of the product is not adapted. And not only is it our job to teach the industry on what solutions there are, but it's also everybody's job to kind of play with an open hand on the table, right? This is what we can do, this is where we can do it, and we have to stop looking at one sustainable solution that fits all. We have to go regional, understand in Germany, what are the recycling stream, what happens to a product once you put it in the bin. And then once we know what happens to that product, we can start offering the right solutions. It's a bit like looking at the security industry. I need a security label. Are you looking for something tamper evident, brand protection? What's the issue you're trying to solve? And I think us, Avery Dennison, or label suppliers, unprinted label suppliers, it's too much responsibility for us to just, you guys wait, we'll come with a solution. But we have to interact as an industry to really understand what we want to do. And then over time, with economy of scale, and the more we learn, the more we adapt, then I think we can come up with some very sexy solutions without even involving or compromising any of the comfort that consumers have.
Yeah, I think it's the frustration was, I think amongst some suppliers was that should they be talking directly? I mean, if you look at, for example, the adhesives that release in a recycling bath, that can really help to recover PET or glass. The question for the suppliers sometimes is, who should I be talking to? Should I be talking to the brewery, or should I be talking to the label printer, who's customer, educating the label printer who's customer, and educating the label printer how to sell that environmental benefit to a customer? I don't know whether you have
on this specific one, hard for me to say. In terms of who gets the information, I think the first thing is to plant the seed, right? Plant the idea. You talked about the PET enabling solution, so that's our Clean Flake solution. And it doesn't mean these are nice solutions because we start looking in circularity. For me, sustainability is equal to circularity. Just saying I'm using a recycled content material, tick the box, sustainable, never talk about it again. It doesn't work. We need to understand where we get stuff and where it goes and try to close the loop. So this Clean Flake technology is actually a very interesting one because we strongly believe that it's a sustainable solution, but the material that we sell is not recycled. However, it does enable the recycling of PET containers. So we know that PET is 100% recyclable, bottle to bottle. But this is only to the condition that you do not have any contaminants in that recycling stream of PET. And this is not only true for PET, but generally speaking, that's why we're moving to monomaterial constructions as an industry, paper on paper, PP on PP, and so on. So what we do is we have these. So we have this label that you stick onto a PET bottle, and you do not need to use less material to enable the recycling of it. Then it goes through and this I think is the magic of the solution, is that it's been built on top of an existing recycling stream. So we did not have to go to recyclers and say, hey, change the way you're doing things. We need a new truck to pick up different types of waste. We just build a solution on top of what is existing. Bottle is labeled, used, thrown away by the consumer in the right recycling stream. Goes to a recycling factory or site, I don't know how you'd call those. Bottle plus label gets shredded. Ends up into a caustic bath, so bath of water plus chemicals at a certain temperature. And that specific bath deactivates the adhesive. So that's the interesting part, right? It's a permanent label with a deactivatable adhesive. And the nice thing is that we have the PP label that will actually float to the surface due to its density, and you have PET, which is heavier, that will stay at the bottom. So you get to remove the contaminants at the top, and you just grab what is left at the bottom. So PET without any stick label onto it, so contaminants, and you get to recycle that. And this is something very interesting. It's a new dimension to saying, oh, I'm looking for compostability. I'm looking for recyclable material. We have to look at the total weight of a packaging and say, how much of this total weight can we save? If it means giving away the label, but to save 100% of the PET, as of today, I think that's a pretty good trade-off.
Sure. Matt, as a machine manufacturer, another aspect of sustainability is inside the converter, in terms of waste reduction, in terms of more efficient usage of energy. I do remember some time ago, one of the big material suppliers suggested that about 12% of material is wasted, we're not talking about liner waste here, we're just talking about wasted material from the time they deliver it to the time it gets onto the actual container, and that's in make-ready waste and these things. So can you talk something about the way technology has reduced waste and also energy consumption?
Absolutely. So one of the examples I talked about earlier about a UK customer of ours who's fully integrated into CERM is that between job changes now, guaranteed 3 meters waste. So it's not 50 meters if operator A is on the machine, or 5 meters if it's operator B on the machine. The way this system is configured and the way it works is that we can do a job change within a known quantity between job A and job B, for example. So that's one thing that automation is bringing to the party in terms of reducing the waste, taking operations away from operators, which some are better than others. Some have good days and bad days, and that also affects the wastage that's produced in the label process. I think digital has a big part to play in terms of reducing the amount of waste. Typically there is more waste in the production or the conventional printing processes because of the way that the machines are set up. That's been reduced with automation from the flexo press guys, but typically as a general rule you will take more material to set up a conventional press in comparison to a digital press. So that's I think that's what we're seeing, is that automation from our point of view can actually help our customers reduce the amount of waste that they're using in the finishing departments, and I think that trend's going to continue moving forward.
Thank you.
So just to add on top of what Matt just said, the idea of reducing waste is a very good approach, but it will still leave waste behind. And I think something that's also important to add to the equation is managing waste, right? So we can reduce it as much as we want, but we're still going to be left with something. So liner is a very interesting point, because for every square meter that we produce of unprinted face material, it comes with 1 square meter of liner. So the end consumer will see a label, but they're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? All the waste that's been produced behind it, they don't see that. But we do see it. So if we wait for them to tell us what to do with it, it's never going to happen. They don't even know it exists. So if we talk about managing the waste, we go back to the idea of circularity. And for this, we've launched a new service. It's not that new anymore, but it's called AD Circular. You've probably heard of it. We think we tried to promote it quite a lot, where we work with brand owners or even with converters to try to grab that liner back. So the liner has to be in a certain condition, and then we will just send that roll of liner back to a paper manufacturer that will repulp it and make recycled paper with it. If we can already do that, we're not even talking about compostability or reducing the inks or whatever, or recycling stream, but this is something that we as an industry, internally to us, we can control. We grab the liner back, we recycle it, and then it ends up back being a face material or another liner later on. And I think this is something that's already very interesting, and we can even use that in proper examples. The Clean Flake solution that I've just mentioned before with the label that separates, we use part of the PET that's being recycled to actually produce the PET liner of that construction. And this goes to another part that we've also discussed yesterday, is creating an interesting and attractive storyline to not only us within the industry, but to consumers as well. And we're very happy to be using recycled content PET for the PET liner of our Clean Flake solution. It's the best way to show circularity. Here's a sample of the label. See how it works? Oh, you can recycle the PET. It's used in the backing as well. And I think we as an industry have to understand how sustainability works, but also we have to be able to promote it and communicate it correctly to among us, but also to consumers later on.
Henri, can you explain the logistics around picking up liner?
Yep.
When and where it makes sense?
So that's you're touching the difficult point. That's actually so I'm not saying that recycling it. So I'm not saying that recycling the liner is an easy thing to do. I don't know the principle behind it, but it's also difficult to separate the silicone from the paper, to recycle the paper and so on. So what we've done, and I've worked in this in France in trying to grab brand owners and to get them on board with this new service. And the difficult part is how do they manage this waste, and how do they change their processes? Imagine you are at a company that manufactures glass bottle of waters. They apply the labels onto their bottles with an automatic dispensing machine. They grab the liner and they just throw it away. whatever happens with that liner afterwards, they don't really care. It goes through a waste management company. It gets revalued, so burned, whatever. So we have to go to them and we start by saying, this is waste that is valuable. Keep it in a specific box that we will provide to you. Do not store it outside, you have to store it inside. So that's where the supply chain problem starts. Then the other challenge is volumes. Because we have to keep in mind that if we take a semi-truck and we go pick up 2 pallets of liners to recycle, once that liner gets to the recycler, the CO2 impact is just negative just by transporting the liner around. So we need them to store a certain amount of it, and then to be able to have enough to fill up a truck so that our CO2 footprint is still positive. So that leads us to the second point. And that was very early stage. We could only work with big companies. Second stage is how do we create like a more regional approach where one truck could go among different companies to pick this waste up. So then we start targeting smaller businesses. But there's definitely a desire to do this because people do not want to throw waste away, and it's a service that at the time was free, now it's not anymore. But it's quite interesting to see how this value chain evolves, but there will be a lot more changes around this, I think, and a lot more challenges as well.
One solution might be we are able to have Uber, to have Amazon Prime. We can manage all that digitally. Why is it not possible to manage something like logistics for liner or matrix to work that way? I wonder. It might be possible.
I think just very briefly, what we're seeing as a trend within our business is that more and more customers are buying solutions with LED lamps on. 5 years ago, 1 machine every blue moon, now every month, probably 2 or 3 machines are going out with LED on. As more and more inks and varnishes become available to the marketplace, we're launching some products that will help reduce the CO2 footprint in terms of metallization on certain applications. And I think that it's really challenging for businesses because you've got to think about obviously your waste, especially if you're a label converter, but also think about your power consumption and the CO2 impact that you're having. But more recently with energy price hikes, what we're seeing in the UK is that so more solar. We actually use power from renewable sources already, but expanding our solar panel arrays is now becoming a lot cheaper than it was 5 or 10 years ago and more attractive for us. So we'll be doing that moving forward. And I think it's important that businesses think about both elements, the waste of the products that they're producing, but also the energy that they're using to counteract that. And we're seeing a change in the market in terms of the machines that we're selling to our customers.
Great. We are at the end of our time now. I'd like you to please put your hands together and thank our panelists very much for their contributions. Thank you.